Hey guys, it's Maddie and welcome back to my channel. My original plan for this video was to have a very well thought out, a well-researched video about not feeling good enough, but that doesn't feel very authentic for me. I kind of want to just ramble on about not feeling good enough, where it stems from, and just talking about it. It's something we all go through at one point or another. Like, there are certain areas in all of our lives that we don't feel good enough in, and it'll be so different from one person to the next. I wanted to give my thoughts on it, some personal experiences that I've been through, what contributes to me not feeling good enough, and just kind of have a little chat about it. I want to make more of these videos just to normalize it, because in my day-to-day life, I don't really talk to that many people about not feeling good enough or about the imposter syndrome that I sometimes feel. Anyways, let's just get right into it. For me, not feeling good enough comes from having very low self-esteem, low self-worth, feeling like I'm always failing at what I do. I can never attain my goals, or success isn't for me, and I'm just a very unsuccessful person. I think not feeling good enough also goes hand in hand with imposter syndrome, and imposter syndrome is a little bit different, but it's the belief that you're not worthy or deserving of your success, or that you didn't play an active role in your achievements. I'm gonna list off a few areas where not feeling good enough is really prevalent, and the first is being in relationships. If you find yourself in a very healthy relationship where there's mutual love, respect, and compassion, you might not feel deserving of those qualities, of those things that you are being shown. If you grew up in a household where it was a bit of a shit show and things were kind of chaotic and you weren't shown unconditional love, then when you find yourself in this position, it might feel like you're not good enough, and that you don't live up to what you think a person should be who gets unconditional love. That is something I really struggle with. I think love is conditional, and that I must meet certain things in order to get that love. And with my partner, he has thrown me for a loop because he loves me regardless of what happens or things I do. And it's very uncomfortable for me. And I kind of look back on it and self-sabotage and things, kind of testing his love, testing to see how far it'll go. And that's not good, because obviously people are people and they can only handle so much. So everyone has a breaking point. So if I keep trying to test this love, eventually it might run out if I keep up the self-sabotaging and the destructive behavior, because Dustin will reach a breaking point. And then once that breaking point comes, it kind of validates all of my fears. It validates that I am not good enough, just who I am. And that's another thing that really comes hand in hand with the not feeling good enough, is the self-sabotaging, because you are in denial of what you were being given or shown or achieve. The second is workplace or educational and intelligence. If you find yourself in a really great job, you might not feel like you live up to the standard or the expectations that are put on you, even though you got the job for a reason, or you are in the class you're in for a reason. You have found yourself in this position because you are good enough, but you might start having those self-doubts. You might start questioning things, and then comes the self-sabotaging, where you might do more sloppy work. You might not take on as much responsibilities as you once did, and your quality of work might just kind of decline. Or you might start showing up late, kind of neglecting some of your tasks, whether this be in school, where you just stop doing assignments and you stop showing up to class, you stop giving a shit about your homework, or at work, you just start handing off different things to other people, or just don't do as thorough of a job as you once did. And again, the consequences that come from these actions will solidify the fact that you are indeed not good enough for where you're at. The third is social settings, and I find a huge connection between social awkwardness, I'm gonna say, or not being a good enough person socially, and also people pleasing, because both of these are very concerned with how other people perceive you and how you interact with them. And you're hyper aware of every move you make, every comment that has been said, and after a social interaction, you'll kind of replay everything in your head and pinpoint one little place where you slipped up or where things might have been a little awkward or weird. And then you take that and hold on to it and see and like prove to yourself, like, see, I'm not good enough. I'm not good at socializing. I'm not good in social situations. I am an awkward person. And then you just feed off of that. The fourth is appearance. Especially with social media nowadays, we are seeing more people than we ever have before. Like our social circle is much bigger than historically, and you see all different types of people and what is socially accepted as being beautiful, pleasing to the eye, like subjectively, and then that's when that's when the appearance insecurities set in and you don't feel beautiful enough compared to those that you see. Even though majority of them have filters applied to them, are models and like make a living off of their looks. But it's very easy to see like, oh, I have acne or I have cellulite or I have wrinkles and this person doesn't, like they don't have any flaws. They are a flawless, beautiful person and I do have these imperfections. Therefore, I'm not good enough compared to all of these people. And on social media, you really have everyone out there and the pool of comparison is so much bigger. And the fifth is financially. I really struggle with this and I didn't realize it's a feeling of not being good enough until like I sat down and really thought about it. But I have a full-time job now. I am making a good earning. I am making a livable wage and I don't feel deserving of making this money. So then I spend it on bullshit items that I don't need, that I don't want. But it's because I don't feel good enough to have those savings set aside. Finance is a whole other can of worms that I do want to get into at some point, but like finances and emotional stability, emotional well-being are very much interconnected. And I just notice a lot of self-sabotaging. Once I do start earning more money, I find more things to spend it on. And then it kind of solidifies the fact that, see, I'm not good enough to have money. I'm not deserving of this money I have because I'll just blow it. And where does the feeling of not being good enough come from? I think it stems from comparison, comparing to others in our immediate circle and to those we have no connection with at all, like via social media. And it also comes from the failure to meet a certain expectation, whether that expectation is set by yourself or by other people, such as parents, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, teachers, people that you hold to a higher standard, I would say, or that you really value their opinions and thoughts of you. Often these expectations can be first set by our parents, since they have one of the biggest influences in our lives growing up. They might compare you to a sibling and how athletic they are, or to the neighbor kid who is really good at school and just got accepted into a really prestigious college or university. And to be fair, I can kind of see how this might be out of a place of motivation and wanting to encourage you, and they think they can see the potential in you to achieve the same things as these other people. But often that backfires and it actually turns into feelings of not being good enough and that you will never achieve those same successes as those other people. The feeling of not being good enough can also lead to a perfectionist mentality, which then can spiral into feelings of burnout or shame, insecurities, things like that. Because if you feel like you are not good enough, you might be always striving to be good enough, but then when you have those perfectionist tendencies and you never succeed or accomplish the perfectionism, then that just like, oh, yep, see, told you, not good enough. You didn't meet this unattainably high standard. You didn't meet this perfection idea that you had, so therefore you're not good enough. So you're setting yourself up for failure regardless. And the burnout can either be emotionally, like just emotionally drained from life, from caring, from constantly going and moving, or it can be from like physical activities that you once found joy in, but you constantly tried to feel good enough and to succeed and to meet those needs that it just lost all of its joy that it once brought you. And the people that we compare ourselves to, we often pick their best qualities and we magnify them, but then ignore all of the less ideal traits about the person. But then we do the exact opposite to ourselves. We magnify all of the bad things about us or magnify the things we don't like. But then we ignore our achievements, our successes, our good qualities that we have. We just like brush them off and like, no, those don't exist. Like they're not. Even if we have the proof to back it up, we still minimize our achievements. I have 5 questions that I think might help you if you find yourself in the state of not feeling good enough. And it just kind of helps to question the validity of those feelings. The first is there any evidence that proves I am not good enough? And there very well might be, and don't discredit that, but also really truly deep down and look for the experiences that have happened that cause you to feel this way and kind of question them and see how true they actually are and if they still relate to the situation you find yourself in now. The second is, am I comparing myself to others unfairly? Third, what are my strengths and accomplishments? And give yourself credit. Be bold when you give yourself these credits. The fourth is, what is the absolute worst that will happen if I am not perfect? And the fifth is, what can I do to change how I feel? Now I wanted to get into some of my personal experiences, my story, if you will. A lot of my not feeling good enough feelings come from church, going to church, being raised in a church. I have a little bit of a different story because my immediate family didn't go. I would go with friends of mine and their families. So I was right off the start, didn't feel good enough to be in church because I didn't come from a Christian family. I was on my own in the church, so that already kind of set me back. I'm like, I don't have the background of Christianity, so I'm already less than the people I'm here with. And in the church, a big thing is like, you're not good enough. You are so imperfect. There is something fundamentally wrong with you. And until you accept God into your life, you're screwed. Like you're not good enough. And no matter what, you're not good enough to God, but he'll make an exception. Or not make an exception, but he'll overlook all of those bad things because you love him. So therefore now you're good enough. And that has caused a lot of deep-rooted issues in me since I have stopped going to church. And I'm not talking badly on the church. I'm not talking badly on religion. I want to emphasize that. This is just my experience, how I portray things, my perspective on going to church, and especially since I've left. But that has caused a lot of issues in my life, just not feeling good enough compared to my friends who grew up in this very picture perfect family. My family life was very chaotic. It's a strange dynamic. I have strained relationships with family members, and it's a bit of a touchy subject, but just even how my family household interacted with each other, I never felt good enough compared to my friends. And in school, I never felt smart enough. I didn't feel good enough compared to my peers. So that led to a lot of self-sabotaging of giving up on my work, not handing in assignments, not going to class because I didn't feel good enough. So then I acted on those feelings instead of pushing through and finding my worth. I gave in and caved to the shitty feelings, and then in turn, that's when I failed out of school, and then it kind of just spiraled after that. I got a lot of burnout from horseback riding because at one point in my career, I was one of the best, and I don't say that to brag. Like, I feel like everyone in the horse riding world goes through a phase where they are the best, like they're genuinely the best of the best in their area, in their division, things like that. And once you hit the best of the best, you probably aren't going to get there ever again. And it's very humbling. It is a rude awakening because you're always striving to achieve the same accomplishments that you once did. And horseback riding is a very complicated sport because there's a lot of factors. Like, it's not just you are also working with a horse, which is an animal. They have a mind of their own, and you can only have so much influence over them. And I just kind of gave up. Like, horseback riding girls can be bitches, and it wasn't enjoyable for me anymore. I wasn't as competitive as I once was. I just wanted to do it for fun, and I was being pushed outside my comfort zone and being like to a point where it was like taking a really big toll on me. Not pushed out of my comfort zone where I was getting better and improving. It was actually like hindering me. So I got burnout from that, because I'm just like, I can't keep up with this perfectionist image I'm trying to obtain, and it's doing so much harm to me. So I had to give it up. I just got burnt out, and at this point I don't know if I'll ever go back to competing. I want to go back to riding, but I don't know if I'll ever be as serious as I was at one point. I have very sensitive skin. I have acne. I have like little forehead wrinkles, like little crow's feet. I have blackheads. I am not super insecure about my skin, but it's definitely an insecurity of mine that I'm very hyper aware of. And that makes me want to isolate and I don't want to share my skincare routine because I don't feel good enough. I don't feel qualified enough to talk about skincare when it's a huge passion of mine, when my skin looks like this, so to say. And lastly, I have severe social anxiety. I don't feel good enough to socialize with people. I don't feel like people genuinely want to talk to me. So then I make that my reality. I isolate from people. I am not confident going into conversations. Like, I might come off really confident here, but when I get put into a real world situation, I kind of revert into myself. I go back into my shell. I don't really branch out that much. I'm trying to work on that, and I'm trying to embody a more confident and well-spoken person when I am out places. But it's difficult, and I just don't feel good enough. So then I just don't try, and that probably makes me come off as a bitch and too cool to talk to these people per se, or just as socially awkward. And that's not something I want to put out either. Feeling good enough is something I am really trying to work on, and I don't know if I'll ever overcome it per se, but it's something I'm just trying to accept and be like, well, okay, I might not feel good enough, but I don't have to act that way. I can act confident. I can act like I have my shit together, and maybe one day it'll happen. Maybe one day it will penetrate into my life and I can bring it out in myself that I am good enough, that I can fully, truly, wholeheartedly believe it. I have a much better relationship with my perfectionism side, and feeling good enough, I am working through it, and it is getting better. It's much better than it was like 2 years ago even. And that's just me pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, accepting the fact that I might always be this way. So there's no point in beating myself up on it. I might as well just get used to it and accept it and move on and focus on things I do feel good enough in. But anyways, that is it for this video. It was very rambly, very chatty, but I love to chat, especially about like self-help things, self-development. It is a huge passion of mine, and making this more understandable for an everyday person and not making it so complicated and so psychological. Like, it is what it is. Like, I want this to be attainable for everyone. I want it to be easily digestible and just feeling like we're having a chat over our morning coffee. Anyways, I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.